The smell of fresh bread still filled the small kitchen when the first insult of the day arrived. Emma had woken up early, kneading the dough with care, wanting to surprise her husband with something warm before he left for work. She placed the bread on the table, butter melting on top. But before anyone could take a bite, her mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the air like a blade. "This is not bread. This is stone. Who could eat this filth?" Emma froze. Her hands, still dusted with flour, trembled as her mother-in-law pushed the plate away with disdain. She was used to these words, but each time they struck deeper. The old woman's eyes carried not just dislike, but a strange fire that seemed to say, "You will never be good enough for my son." Emma's husband, Daniel, sat silently at first, flipping through the newspaper. He had once defended her, reminding his mother that marriage was about partnership and respect. But lately, Emma noticed something shifting in him. The more whispers his mother fed him, the more his patience for Emma seemed to thin. That morning, when Emma looked at him, hoping for even the smallest word of support, Daniel simply sighed and muttered, "Maybe next time, cook something simple. Don't always try to prove yourself." Those words burned more than the insult. Emma swallowed her pain and cleared the table quietly, but her heart screamed inside. Every dish she cooked was ridiculed, every effort crushed under the weight of disapproval. And the worst part, her husband was slipping away from her, inch by inch, siding with the very person who wanted to break her. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Nothing changed. Whenever Emma set food on the table, her mother-in-law would wrinkle her nose and call for food from outside. It wasn't about taste anymore. It was about power. An unspoken war in which Emma was the only target. One rainy night, Emma couldn't hold back. She turned to Daniel as they lay in bed, her hands clutching the blanket. "Why don't you see what she's doing to me? Why don't you stop her?" Her voice cracked. "Do you think I'm lying? Do you think I enjoy crying every night?" Daniel rubbed his forehead, tired from work, but instead of comforting her, he grew harsh. "Emma, I don't want to hear this again. My mother raised me. She sacrificed for me. You can't expect me to turn against her because of your complaints." "But they're not complaints," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It's my life, my dignity." Daniel turned away, leaving Emma in the darkness with her sobs echoing in the silence. The real wound came later. Emma discovered she was pregnant. For a moment, her world lit up. She imagined holding her baby, a tiny heartbeat growing inside her, a reason to survive. She thought, maybe this child will change everything. Maybe Daniel will love me again. Maybe his mother will finally accept me. But instead, the pregnancy became another weapon against her. When Emma shyly shared the news, her mother-in-law's reaction was a cruel laugh. "This child? Don't fool yourself. It's not my son's. It must be from your so-called boyfriend. You think I don't see the way you hide your phone, the way you walk out to the courtyard for calls?" Shameless woman. Emma stood frozen, her lips parting to defend herself. But no words came. The accusation was too vile, too cruel. When she turned to Daniel, begging him with her eyes to deny his mother's words, his face was pale. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, Emma's heart broke. "Emma," he finally said, his voice low. "Sometimes I wonder too." The world crashed around her. 7 months into her pregnancy, the storm struck its final blow. Daniel, once her safe place, handed her a divorce paper. "You can't stay here anymore," he said coldly. "I can't raise a child that might not even be mine." Emma collapsed to the ground, clutching her belly. "How could you say this? You know me. You know I would never—" But he turned his face away. Her mother-in-law stood at the door, arms crossed, satisfaction shining in her eyes. For her, victory was complete. Emma left that house with nothing but her unborn child and her shattered soul. Nights were the hardest. Alone in a small rented room, Emma would sit by the window, hands over her growing belly, whispering to her unborn son. "They broke me, but I won't let them break you. You will be my strength, my reason. We will survive, my boy. We will." Every contraction of pain, every sleepless night, became fuel for the fire growing inside her. She no longer dreamed of their acceptance. She dreamed of revenge, not with anger, but with success, with survival, with dignity. She promised herself, "One day, they will need me. One day, they will know the cost of cruelty." The day Emma signed the divorce papers, the sky was gray, heavy with rain. She remembered walking out of the court with her belly swollen, raindrops soaking her clothes, people staring as if she was invisible. She had no umbrella, no family to run to, no home to return to. All she had was the tiny life moving inside her, reminding her she wasn't truly alone. She rented a single-room apartment at the edge of the city. It was small, with peeling paint, and a roof that leaked whenever it rained, but it was hers. Every night, she sat by the broken window, feeling the cold wind on her face, whispering to her unborn child, "My boy, we don't have much now, but we will. I promise you. One day, I'll give you a better life than they ever imagined." Emma worked odd jobs during her pregnancy, folding clothes in a laundry shop, cleaning houses, and helping at a small bakery. None of it paid much, but she saved every coin, every penny. Sometimes she skipped meals so she could buy vitamins for the baby. She walked miles under the scorching sun and in the pouring rain, often with aching feet and a heavy belly. Strangers stared, some with pity, others with judgment, but Emma kept her head down. When her son was finally born, she named him Ethan. He was small, fragile, but when Emma held him in her arms for the first time, she felt her broken heart begin to mend. His tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb, and she whispered through tears, "You're my whole world now. You're the reason I'll never give up." Life with Ethan wasn't easy. He cried at night, his tiny chest heaving, while Emma rocked him back and forth, humming lullabies even when her eyes burned with exhaustion. She had no one to help, no one to lean on. Some nights she remembered Daniel, the way he had once held her hand, the way he had laughed with her. She wondered if he ever thought about her, about the child he had abandoned. But then she remembered his mother's cruel laughter, the betrayal in his silence, and her tears dried up. She had no space left for longing, only survival. When Ethan turned 2, Emma bought a second-hand bicycle. It was old, rusted in parts, but sturdy enough. She started delivering food at night for local restaurants. Sometimes Ethan sat in a small carrier behind her, his tiny hands clutching the sides, while rain soaked them both. The nights were the hardest. Icy winds, slippery roads, and dangerous streets where drunken men shouted at her. But Emma pedaled through it all, her determination stronger than her fear. One stormy evening, she almost crashed when lightning struck nearby. She fell, scraping her knees, but Ethan cried from the back seat, and she picked herself up. She wiped the blood from her legs, got back on the bicycle, and finished her delivery. Her life became a cycle of struggle, work all night, care for Ethan all day, and snatch moments of rest whenever she could. And yet, despite everything, Emma never complained, because each coin she earned, each meal she placed on the table, was proof that she could stand on her own. Years passed. Ethan grew taller, stronger, and brighter. He became Emma's little helper, folding, laundry, carrying grocery bags, even wiping her tears when she broke down. One day, when Ethan was around 10, he asked her, "Mom, why don't we live with Dad? Why doesn't Grandma visit us?" Emma froze. She had shielded him from the truth for years, but now the questions had come. She pulled him close, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Because not everyone who shares your blood shares your love. But you, my son, you're the reason I survived. And one day you'll see. Hard work and truth always win in the end." That night, she sat awake, staring at the ceiling. She realized something. She could no longer just survive. She needed to rise. For herself, for Ethan, for the dignity they had stolen from her. Seeds of revenge. Emma began to dream bigger. She started baking again, not for insults or approval, but for herself. The same bread her mother-in-law had once called stone now became her source of strength. She experimented with recipes at night, sold small batches in the morning, and saved every extra penny. Within 2 years, she expanded into a small stall near the market. People loved her food. They said her bread carried warmth, her dishes carried love. They didn't know that behind each loaf was years of tears, years of pain, baked into resilience. Step by step, Emma was building not just a livelihood but a future, and deep down, she knew. One day, those who threw her away would see her rise. Emma's stall in the marketplace became more than just a way to earn money. It became her sanctuary. Every morning, she would wake before dawn, knead dough with tired but steady hands, and breathe in the smell of yeast rising in the small oven she had bought secondhand. Ethan often sat at the table with her, doing his homework, asking questions, sometimes just keeping her company. Customers who came to the stall weren't just buying bread or pastries. They were buying Emma's spirit, though they never knew it. Word spread quickly in the neighborhood. People said her bread had a softness you couldn't find anywhere else. Her pies carried a warmth that reminded them of childhood, and her stews tasted like comfort on a bad day. With each compliment, Emma's confidence grew, and with every coin she earned, she felt closer to the life she had once dreamed of. The old pain never left her completely, but it began to fuel her instead of break her. Years passed like this, and Ethan grew into a young man who towered over his mother, but still hugged her every time she came home. He admired her resilience, her ability to laugh even when life had been cruel. He often told her, "Mom, one day I'll make sure you never have to work this hard again." And Emma would smile, brushing his hair back, whispering, "We've already made it this far. Son, together, there's nothing we can't face." Yet inside she carried a fire that hadn't burned out. The memory of her mother-in-law's cruel words, of the way her husband had signed divorce papers so coldly, as if she and their unborn child meant nothing. She didn't crave revenge through violence or hatred. Her revenge was survival, success, and dignity. The turning point came when a local restaurant owner stopped by her stall one day. He tasted her bread, raised his eyebrows in surprise, and asked who baked it. When Emma told him, he said he wanted her to supply his restaurant daily. That was her first contract, and it changed everything. From there, small cafes and shops began reaching out, all wanting Emma's food. She borrowed a little money, expanded into a proper kitchen, and hired 2 young women who also came from difficult lives. She didn't just give them jobs, she gave them hope, the same way she had once craved someone to believe in her. Ethan often teased her, "Mom, you're building an empire," and Emma would laugh, though deep down, she knew he was right. As her business grew, she began to hear whispers of her past life. People in the town told her that her ex-husband's second marriage had crumbled. His wife had left him, accusing him of being a failure. He had started drinking, just like his mother once encouraged. Emma listened quietly, not rejoicing, not pitying, just observing. She never spoke ill of him to Ethan, never poisoned her son's heart with hate. She wanted Ethan to see for himself, when the time came, who had chosen truth and who had chosen lies. And then, one evening, fate gave her that moment. It was raining heavily, and Emma had just closed her shop when she saw a familiar figure on the street corner. A man, disheveled, drenched in water, holding a bottle that was nearly empty. His clothes were torn, his hair a mess, his face hollowed with years of bad choices. It was Daniel. He was begging a passerby for money, his voice broken, his hands trembling. Emma froze, her heart beating rapidly, not from love, but from the flood of memories. She watched him stumble, watched people ignore him the same way he had once ignored her pleas for kindness. For a long moment, she considered walking past, leaving him to the same fate he had left her to. But instead she stepped closer, her umbrella shielding her from the rain, her voice steady as she said, "Daniel." He looked up, eyes squinting through the storm, and when recognition hit him, his face twisted with shame. "Emma, he began, but his words broke apart. Emma didn't let him speak. She simply looked at him, standing strong in the very rain that once made her cry, the rain that once soaked her clothes as she walked out of court alone. Now she was unshaken. "You taught me what despair is," she said softly, her voice calm, but cutting. "But you also taught me how strong I can be. I survived what you and your mother did to me. And now, look at us. You chose your path, and I chose mine." She turned away, leaving him in the rain, not with hatred, but with finality. Ethan, who had been waiting nearby, came to her side, confused, asking, "Mom, who was that?" Emma placed her hand on his shoulder, smiled faintly, and whispered, "Just someone who lost everything, because he never knew how to love." That night, Emma didn't cry. She didn't rejoice either. She simply felt free. Revenge had come, not through anger, but through the life she built, the dignity she reclaimed, and the love she poured into her son. And in that freedom, she finally found peace. Emma's life blossomed in ways she never could have imagined back in those dark years. Her small bakery had now grown into a thriving business with multiple outlets across the town. People didn't just come for food. They came for warmth, for comfort, for the little piece of Emma's heart that went into every loaf, every pie, every pastry. Ethan, now a young man in his 20s, stood proudly beside her, helping to manage the stores, taking care of deliveries, and watching over his mother the way she had once watched over him. Their bond was unbreakable, built on pain, healed by resilience, and strengthened by love. Emma's story had become known in the community. Customers often spoke of her strength with admiration, whispering about the hardships she endured. To them, she wasn't just a baker, she was a symbol of survival. And Emma, though humble, couldn't help but feel proud. Every time she walked into one of her stores, saw her employees smiling and earning their livelihood, she knew she had built more than a business. She had built a family for people who once felt forgotten, just like she had been. But fate wasn't done with her yet. One quiet evening, after closing the shop, Ethan came to her looking unsettled. "Mom," he said gently, "someone's waiting outside. An old woman. She says she knows you." Emma felt her heart tighten. Stepping out into the dim glow of the streetlight, she saw her mother-in-law, aged, frail, her once sharp tongue silenced by the weight of years. The woman's hair was thin and gray, her clothes worn out, her body trembling from weakness. She leaned heavily on a cane, her eyes hollow but filled with desperation. "Emma," the old woman whispered, her voice shaking. I need help." For a moment, Emma stood frozen, memories rushing back like a tidal wave. This was the woman who had once spat venom at her, who had called her child illegitimate, who had pushed her into the darkest corner of despair. Emma remembered the nights she had cried alone, the times she had begged her husband to believe her, the day she had been thrown out of her home. Every scar on her soul bore this woman's name. And now, here she was, broken and alone. Ethan, confused, looked at his mother. "Mom, who is she?" he asked quietly. Emma's lips pressed together, and after a long silence she replied, "She's your grandmother." Ethan's eyes widened in shock. He had grown up without grandparents, without knowing that part of his family, because Emma had chosen to protect him from the poison of the past. The old woman reached out a trembling hand. "I have no one left, Emma. Your son, my son, he abandoned me. I'm blind in one eye, I can barely walk, and I have no money, no home. Please, please, I beg you. Forgive me. Help me." Emma's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to turn her back, to walk away and let karma finish what it had started. But another part of her, the part that had survived storms, the part that had built everything from ashes, stood taller. She stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "Do you remember the day you told me I was unworthy? That my child wasn't part of your blood? Do you remember throwing me out of my own home when I carried the only piece of love I had left? I begged for your kindness, and you gave me cruelty. I asked for acceptance, and you gave me exile. You wanted to destroy me, but I survived. And now, you stand here asking me for help." Tears streamed down the old woman's wrinkled cheeks. She fell to her knees, sobbing. "I was wrong. I was blinded by pride. I see it now. Please. Emma, don't leave me to die alone." Ethan looked at his mother with pleading eyes. "Mom, what will you do?" he asked, torn between compassion and anger. Emma knelt slightly, meeting her mother-in-law's eyes. Her voice was steady, almost cold. "You wanted to see me suffer, but instead you're the one who's suffering. This is not my doing, it's the doing of life. I won't curse you. I won't harm you. But I also won't take you back into my home. You made your bed long ago, and now you must lie in it." With that, Emma called a social worker, arranging for her ex-mother-in-law to be taken to a shelter where she could get food and care. She did not abandon her completely, but she did not embrace her either. That night, Emma sat with Ethan on their porch. The moon shone bright, casting silver light on their quiet home. Ethan held her hand. "Mom," he said softly, "you're the strongest person I've ever known." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Strength isn't about fighting back with anger, Ethan. It's about standing tall, even when the world wants to break you. We don't let the past poison us. We rise above it." And so Emma's journey came full circle. The mother-in-law, who once tormented her, was now powerless, her ex-husband destroyed by his own choices, while Emma lived with dignity, love, and success. Her revenge had never been to destroy them. It had been to survive them. And in the end, survival was the greatest victory of all.